It's wrap up time. So when I am filming this, it is the 1st of April. Happy April, I suppose. April is my mother's birth month. So, you know, lovely time. We love Aries season. If I get distracted at all during this, it's because my lighting is really annoying me, and if I stop and try to fix it one more time, my head might explode. So we're just gonna go with it. I'm gonna try not to make this too obnoxiously long, but then again, it is me, so don't be surprised if that time counter just below goes past 15 minutes and up towards, 25. I'm real bad at talking about things. If you haven't realised, I like to ramble. So in the month of March, I read 9 books, which I'm actually surprised about. I didn't expect that. But here we are. You won't be surprised, however, to hear that 5 of those books were actually university reads. Can you tell I have no time for my own reading outside of uni? Can you tell? Can you tell? Well, this month I read books in 3 different formats. I read 5 physical books, 4 ebooks, and 1 audiobook. I'm probably not going to talk about these all in order just because I don't remember what order I read them in, honestly. I'm going to be real with you. No clue. Should I have looked it up before starting this? Probably. Am I going to? No. So these are the 5 physical books that I read this month. Every time I try to hold up a stack of books, they always fall. I shouldn't be allowed to do things. Anyways, yes. These are the 5 physical books that I read in the month of March. You will notice a common theme throughout them all, which is they were all for uni. So I suppose let's talk about these ones first. For university, I read The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. I don't know why I was saying The Sun Also Rises. The only thing that rose while I was reading this was my temper. But alas, I ended up giving The Sun Also Rises 2 stars. It wasn't for me. I was reading this book while I was taking part in one of Spoopy Hall's live shows. I distinctly remember saying The Sun Also Rises is very much like American Psycho, but take out the murder and only have the stupid dinner conversations. It was kind of dull. I read this book for my American literature module, and I will honestly be happy if I never really have to think about it again. Not a lot happened. At all. I know it's a small book, so you're like, of course not a lot happened, but really, not a lot happened. It just follows this friendship group who aren't really a friendship group because they all kind of hate each other, and they go to Spain. And apparently 2 of them are in love with each other. Could have fooled me. Had no idea. You could not tell. All in all, it is not exactly a modern classic that I would rush to recommend to people. It was just kind of grim, to be entirely honest. I didn't really enjoy it. It was really well written, it was very easy to read, but that didn't really make the contents enjoyable. So it's kind of gotten a no from me, if you couldn't tell from the 2 stars. One of the other books I read this month was The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. This book was entertaining, to be honest. It wasn't bad at all. I actually kind of enjoyed my time reading it. I ended up giving this book 3 stars, I believe. If you don't know what The Maltese Falcon is about, it's basically a hard-boiled Private Eye novel. So it's about this detective called Spade and a whole lot of shenanigans that he gets up to while trying to uncover a falcon. Not a real one, a stone one, I should interject and say. It's about as absurd as it sounds. I don't really know how to explain my thoughts on this book. It was just entertaining. It wasn't something that I would rush to reread or say is one of my favourite things that I've read throughout my time on this module. Also for the American Fic module. Are you surprised? No, not at all. But it was interesting, and I'm pretty sure there is a film of it with Humphrey Bogart in it, so I will definitely be watching that. Because we all do stand a wee bit of Humphrey Bogart, you know what I mean. But yeah, if you particularly like Private Eye genres and kind of detective novels, you might actually enjoy this quite a lot. It's definitely of its time. You can definitely tell it was written in that gritty kind of 30s. I think it was written in the 30s. I could check. But no one really cares when it was published. And if you do, Google's a friend. So let's take a little break here from me talking about my American fiction module and talk about my Utopia Dystopia module. I read Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman and I loved it. So these 3 books, I actually made a reading vlog about my adventure reading them. I read them during my uni reading week. Honestly, take a shot every time I say reading. Or maybe don't, that'll be bad for your health. Anyways, Herland by Charlotte Perkins Gilman is basically about a tribe of, I believe, Amazonian women, and 3 men who stumble into their midst. These women, I should add, have a society of only females, like only females, have for like 2,000 years. Kind of iconic, I know. Reproduction, how does that work? Well, that's what these 3 random men were wondering too whenever they decided, let's go figure it out. This novel, I cannot praise enough. Like, obviously I have my issues with it. There's a wee bit of eugenics in there, which we don't stan. However, it was written in 1915 by a suffragette, and oh boy, you can tell. It is iconic. I just... so much love. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It was only shy of 5 stars, to be entirely honest. I loved my time reading this. It was so much fun, it was so interesting, and it raised so many really interesting and thought-provoking questions about society, sociology, and honestly what it means to be a woman. And I really, really enjoyed it. If you have any interest in utopia, dystopia, or even in feminist fiction, I would highly recommend reading Herland. Because even though to us now, as a modern audience, a lot of the questions it raises are ones that we're kind of used to, when you think about the time in which this was written, 1915, mind-blowing, iconic, amazing. It was so good. I highly recommend this. Just love, amazing, iconic. Honestly, this is the best book that I have read for my entire Utopia Dystopia module. Facts. Straight facts. I'm gonna write an essay on it because I'm that obsessed. Back onto American literature, I read In a Lonely Place by Dorothy Hughes? Dorothy B. Hughes. Get it right, girly, get it right. I love this. What? A good book? From my American fiction module? What? Trust me, I'm as astounded as you are. I ended up giving this 4 stars. This? Iconic. Of course, like with all these books, I have my issues with it. They were all written at the start of like the 20th century. Yes, 20th century. Oh, I can count. Love that for me. In a Lonely Place follows a war veteran called Dix as he kind of makes his way around LA? No, California. No. Yes, California. He goes to Malibu at one point. That's California. Can you tell I know nothing about America? Because I really know nothing about America. Anyways, all you need to know is Dix, by the way, his name is Dix Steele. Does anyone else find the irony in that? That his name is Dix Steele? Like balls of steel? Like a dick of steel? No, just me? Okay, anyways. This is a crime novel, but I would say it's more of a noir. Basically, there is a bunch of murders, stranglings, if you will, happening. That Dix's friend, Brub, yes, Brub he's not a private eye, he's just a detective. Is he in the police? You would think I'd remember this because I really enjoyed this book, but alas, no I don't. Anyways, all that matters is there's a whole load of weird stuff going on, there's a lot of murder happening, and Dix is just bopping about living his life. Except Dix is a complete and utter psycho. Again, I'm gonna talk about American Psycho. Very Patrick. He's very Patrick. He knows how to change himself depending on the crowd he is with. And let me tell you, I loved it. This was such a fast, engaging, really easy read. Once I picked it up, I could not put it down, and I genuinely really enjoyed it. So again, if you like noir kind of books, if you like murder, mystery, except you kind of know who the killer is, but it's interesting to see them meet their downfall, I would highly recommend In a Lonely Place. It was so good. Really enjoyable. And yeah, I genuinely think I might at some point pick this up again and reread it. I don't know what about it is just like so good to me. I just really liked it. I really liked seeing into Dix's psyche because I noticed something within it, which is he has a very, let's say, volatile reaction to noise. And you know what? I relate. I relate. Am I the only one that noticed this because I'm just a big old autistic and noise is like to me? Maybe? I don't know. I've come to the realization every time I pick up a book, my lighting turns to absolute garbage. Is it still garbage? Probably. To be entirely honest, probably. But we're gonna look past that for the time being. I ask that of you, please. Look past it, I'm technologically inept. But I am going to talk to you now about Native Son. Will my lighting mess up if I hold this up? Probably. Shall we pretend it's not? I would appreciate that. Thank you. So I read Native Son by Richard Wright. I gave it 3 stars. I have a lot of thoughts on it. It's a big book, okay? It's a big book. And it took a lot out of me, let me tell you, it took a lot out of me. Native Son follows Bigger Thomas, who is a 20-year-old black boy in Chicago in the 40s. So you can imagine his life is not necessarily the best. The really interesting thing I find about Native Son is how it deals with racial stereotyping and prejudice. The portrayal of Bigger doesn't actually fight against those stereotypes as much as he sort of feeds into them, which I find very interesting. As Bigger sort of attempts to make a life for his own by working with this very wealthy white family, he finds himself honestly feeling like shit. The people of this family are trying to help him, but at the end of the day, it all seems counterproductive. What happens in actuality is, instead of helping Bigger, they kind of make his life a bit worse. And in turn, he makes theirs worse. It's a very interesting novel if you want to look into racial stereotyping and kind of think about the psyche of someone who has been forced to play a role to the point that they're not even sure if it's a role anymore or if it's who they are. I have a lot of thoughts on Native Son. I could honestly talk about it for hours. I didn't necessarily like it, but I found it to be a very important book to read nonetheless. There are quite graphic descriptions of murder and assault and other such not very nice things. Putting those aside, I think this is a very important novel to read, especially if you're someone who is very interested in diverse reading, who wants to kind of learn a bit more about the struggles of what it was to be, and honestly what it still is, to be black in America, or honestly in any other country which has a majority white population. I find it very interesting. I have a lot of questions. Not so many answers. Kind of want to write an essay about that. I tend to talk a lot in these videos about how I want to write essays on specific things. What can I say? I like to write a good essay. Meh. Hello. For the sheer sake of my own sanity, I've had to move from filming in front of my bookcase to this hot garbage because the lighting was actually traumatizing me. But let's move on. This video is such a hot mess. Oh my god. So those are all the physical books that I read this month. So let's quickly move on to the ebooks and the audiobooks that I read before I actually lose my mind. Oh my god. Why is filming a wrap-up so stressful? So the first and only audiobook that I listened to this month was Girl by Edna O'Brien. Girl follows the life of a schoolgirl called Miriam as she is captured and forced to be a child bride of the jihadi. This book was heavy. It was a heavy book. I ended up listening to it, as you can guess, because I just said that this was the only audiobook of the month. Do I have a brain? No, I do not. Cars, stop honking. I'm going to lose my mind. I ended up listening to this audiobook while I was working, so in the midst of pouring candles, I was listening to the awful life of this girl. The character of Miriam and her story is, for the most part, entirely fictional. Edna O'Brien had written this novel based off of the capturing of schoolgirls by the jihadi in 2015, I believe, which made this book all the more real and all the more upsetting. I ended up giving this novel 4 stars. It was very short, very fast paced, and it covered a lot of information, and honestly, while reading it, it really felt as though you were in Miriam's shoes, which is horrifying, to say the least. I'm not going to talk too much about it because there is a lot of triggering content in that book, and also, I don't know how to summarize it. I just don't. I gave it 4 stars. Very, very interesting read, very saddening, when you consider the fact that even though this is a fictional story, it is based off of true events, for the most part. Let's move on to something mind-numbing, which was I read The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. If you know me, if you've been on this channel for, 5 minutes, you'll be aware of the fact I do not read romance. And I especially do not read adult romance. And I especially do not read bodice rippers. It's not my cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not really a fan of it. I don't like sex in books or anywhere. It's just not a fan of it. However, I read The Duke and I. The world is against me. The phone is literally ringing. There are cars going by. My brain is going to fucking explode. I just want to film my wrap up. Stop! The moment that I get up to answer this phone, it's going to stop ringing. It stopped ringing the moment I got up. I read The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. I give it 3 stars. I found it really funny. I don't know if the Bridgerton series is meant to be funny, but I find it funny. I read the entire book in one sitting. One singular sitting. I don't know why I decided to download the ebook. I just did. And the next thing I knew, it was 7 in the morning and I had flipped to the last page. Someone care to explain to me how that happens? Is it just me, or are ebooks way faster and way more immersive? Is that just me? Is that just me? Okay. You all know what The Duke and I is about. It's about a girl called Daphne. She meets a duke. The duke's an asshole. Daphne's like, why are you such a dickhead? That's pretty much it. I find it funny. I find it highly engaging. I also find it to be hot garbage whenever Daphne did that thing that she did. I have a love-hate relationship with this book. Actually, I'm not even going to say a love-hate. I have a what relationship with this book because, like, it just made me go, what? What? And yet that didn't stop me from reading Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. Was it the 4th book in the series? Yes. Are you meant to read them in order? I don't know. Did I read it because it was Colin's story, but more importantly because it had Penelope in it? Of course I did. Of course. I ended up giving that 4 stars. I really liked it. Am I a new person? Have I changed? Has quarantine changed me? Do I like romance? I'm not willing to find the answer to these questions right now. I'm just gonna put them out into the void. I really liked Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. I can't take it seriously saying that. I really liked the 4th book. Really enjoyed it. I love Penelope. I love her so much. I found Penelope's story to be so interesting. It was funny. It was witty. I'm obsessed with her. Colin, I could give or take. Meh. But Pen, well, my queen, I loved her. It was amazing. Yeah, weirdly, I actually really enjoyed it. I found it really fun and really entertaining. And there was a whole underlying drama about Mrs. Whistledown in it. So, yeah, no, Lady Whistledown, not Mrs. Ugh, how could I forget? She's a lady, girlies. She's a lady. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. However, I've noticed a theme in these 2 books that I've read, which is the men have serious anger issues and just issues in general. Simon was just a major dickhead with daddy issues, and Colin had a lot of self-esteem problems, which turned into anger issues, which I did not enjoy. Genuinely, it would have been a 5-star read, that 4th book, because pen. It would have been a 5-star if it wasn't for the fact Colin Bridgerton was a bit of a bitch. And I didn't stand for some of the things he did. But again, not going to talk about that too much because there's spoilers. Is anyone watching this going to read the Bridgerton series? Probably not. This is not what my channel is for. My channel is based off of me reading The Haunted Vagina. This is not a romance channel. So let's move on. Coming to the end. Finally, my brain's not going to explode. Or is it? We'll see in the last. I don't know. I'd say 5 minutes, but let's be honest, it'll probably be fucking 10. I ended up reading The Devil's Footsteps by E.E. Richardson. It was fun! I gave it 3 stars, and it was a good read. It was middle grade, I believe. If you don't know what the book is about, I don't blame you. I've never actually heard anyone talk about it before. I just kind of found it on my Kindle, and I had downloaded it like a year and a half ago, and I never got around to reading it. Until now. The Devil's Footsteps is set in a small town which has a bunch of not so good things happening within it. It gave me really big It vibes, to be entirely honest. My feelings towards The Devil's Footsteps is like if you diluted It and made it less utterly insane and terribly graphic, and just kind of made it like a fun little middle grade read. I think that'd be a good way to describe it, honestly, I think it would. It deals with these 3 kids as they try to uncover why kids keep disappearing in the town that they live in. Except they all kind of know why, they're all like, it's the devil though. And then they decide to go head to head with him. I mean, these kids have more balls than I ever will at any point in my life, so poor to them. It was a short, fun, and honestly engaging little read. I enjoyed my time reading it. I find it fun and immersive. It wasn't terribly thought-provoking, and it didn't really require much of my brain, which, after all of my university reads, I really appreciated. I did actually really like this book. Obviously, I gave it 3 stars, which isn't a terribly high rating, but I feel like that's about as high as I could, like, rate it without being like, what am I doing? Like I said, it's like a chilled out version of It. It really is. If you feel like It by Stephen King is just a bit too much, maybe try reading The Devil's Footsteps. It's like the baby version of it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. There was a lot of aspects of friendship, a lot of facing your fears, how to deal with grief. It's a good little read. Good little read. I'd recommend it for anyone who just wants a little thriller, which won't traumatize them. To be entirely honest. That is it. We are done. Finally, the end. Hello, no more phones ringing, no more birds screaming outside my window, no more cars going past, no more me crying over my lighting. Those were all the books that I read in March. Thank you. That's everything. I am going to go stare at a wall and probably scream to myself why this video genuinely took me like 2 hours to film. Why? Why? Oh my god, editing this is gonna be a pain. I'm not even gonna think about it. I have on green mascara. My name's Ray. I hope you enjoyed this. Like, comment, subscribe, things. Do, yes, hello, have a nice day. Bye.